And we're this bad morning to everyone out there. Resistant traffic browsing experience, the Cash App, $1 and Bitcoin wallet that you can use with a Visa card. The pretty much piss off your coworkers while also consuming fluid and close to one fucking caffeine in a 4-mile run, which I just did. Fuck. Talking about things possible. In that, there are plenty of ways into the terrible and fucking do the thing that we do every day, which is make your day marginally worse. We're talking these real estate Charlie's Angels. If you look at the link we post, you'll see what I mean. Fucking the fucking cuck on the left and the 3 women to the right, just fucking, oh man, and they're all, their hair colors all different colors. It's fucking perfect. Anyway, aside from the aesthetics of it, it's something on West Virginia House panel who's being impeached. Now, keep in mind, impeachment doesn't mean that they're already like out. An impeachment isn't just like putting you out on the rails. Everybody thinks that because of the press coverage during Nixon, but it's not just like throwing them out. It's a trial. So they're not necessarily out yet, but go for it.
It ain't the House panel. The House panel is the one doing the vote, doing the impeaching.
Okay,
people impeached is the entire state Supreme Court.
Yeah, good. Either way, they're not out yet.
And, no, true.
Yeah. But anyway, go for it.
So this is basically phase 1. The Virginia House panel, or West Virginia House panel even, has voted to impeach the entire state Supreme Court. They adopted articles of impeachment Tuesday against all 4 state Supreme Court justices. And FYI, they are basically bipartisan, 2 Republican, 2 Democrat, escalating in a widening scandal in the state's judicial system. The 14 articles of impeachment adopted by the House Committee on the Judiciary accused Chief Justice Margaret Workman and Justices Alan Lowry, Robin Davis, and Elizabeth Walker of failing to carry out the court's administrative duties and wasteful spending during office renovations. Half of the articles of impeachment deal solely with Lowry, who was indicted in June on 22 criminal federal charges, including fraud, false statements, and witness tampering. Workman and Davis may also face impeachment for wrongfully approving the overpayment of senior judges. The articles of impeachment, along with criminal charges faced by Lowry and another retired justice, show that the state's Supreme Court had a real problem. Judiciary Committee Chairman John Schott, a Republican, told CNN by phone, "They think that they are superior and don't need to hold restraint over the taxpayer money they are entrusted with." The articles now go to a full House vote on August 13th. So today. The accused could then face trial in the state Senate, where 2/3 of the members would have to agree to remove them from office. West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals is comprised of 5 justices, each elected to 12-year terms, though only 4 positions are currently filled. CNN calls to Workman, Lowry, Davis, and Walker were not immediately returned. The impeachment articles come on top of earlier charges against Lowry and Justice Manus E. Ketchum II, who retired from the court in late July, just days before he was charged with federal wire fraud. Lowry is accused of taking a historically significant desk called the Cass Gilbert desk to his private home for personal use. He is also accused of using a government vehicle and submitting mileage claims for reimbursement, as well as a state vehicle and credit card on personal trips. Lowry was later indicted on an obstruction of justice charge related to a pending federal grand jury investigation. Lowry pleaded not guilty to the charges and was released on bond, according to court documents. He is suspended without pay and prohibited from hearing cases during a judicial disciplinary proceedings, according to the court's website. Meanwhile, Ketchum, 75, is accused of using state-owned vehicle and fuel credit card to travel between his home and private golf club. A plea hearing in the case is scheduled for August 23rd, court documents show. A U.S. Attorney, Mike Stewart, announced last week that Ketchum had agreed to plead guilty, according to CNN affiliate WSAZ. Schott described his committee's movement toward impeachment as, quote, a sad day for West Virginia, but it's an important step forward if we are going to restore the public confidence in the judiciary. This committee is not taking this effort lightly, he said in a statement. After reviewing all the evidence available to us, it became clear that in a culture of entitlement and disregard for both the law and taxpayer funds have damaged the reputation of our judicial system, and that all justices had a part in violating the public trust. Now, granted, this is from CNN, so pinch or bucket of salt, but still, it's probably is actually backed by valid evidence with court cases and whatnot. So, yeah.
Well, and let's be very clear. Like, I'm just gonna say this because people were fucking weird about this the other day. As an anarchist, I support it whenever the state is used to fight the state. I don't care what the reason is. If they're impeaching each other, good.
Yep.
Because the state is fundamentally illegitimate. They don't own property, so I don't care what they do as long as it's not fucking over the average person. And so I don't. So as long as they're impeaching each other, as long as they're taking each other to task here, that's what I care about. So that's my bias here. And the same thing went for the other day when we covered the fact that there might be a huge amount of antitrust legislation being broken by those companies banning Alex Jones, and also the companies who sucked enough statist cock to censor our broadcast. And if those companies, which were funded, by the way, by the U.S. government, are fought by other agencies funded by the U.S. government, I do not care. I care zero. And I'm actually happy to see it happen because it occupies them. And I don't care how the war is fought here. The war needs to be fought. They need to die. They need to lose everything. So just to clarify that for the people who said that I was an anarchist because I was supporting the idea of the state fighting Alphabet Agency, which Alphabet, by the way, the Alphabet Corporation, I should have said, Alphabet Corporation, which I always just refer to in my brain as the agency, was funded by the CIA in many ways. The Google Earth that you use to navigate Street View, they have a much more advanced version of that, and they use that to spy on us actively. They have better things, and they use them constantly, and they give you a snippet of it as a sort of attaboy for being complacent enough with the system to not question why everything Google offers is free. So I don't give a shit if they're fought. And it's a similar case here. If they want to fight these people on corruption grounds, good. Go for it. Good for them.
I mean, with regards to that kind of argument, for people who are against the state being used for anything, well, okay, I get where you come from, and I largely agree with you, but we have it now. And just pretending it ain't there ain't going to make it go away. So we may as well use it to destroy itself. So feel free to put as much burden on it. Feel free to put as much pressure on it. Just don't be reliant on it. Don't let it take all that responsibility from you. Tell it to basically fuck off at every turn. And a great way of doing that is to use the laws that exist now to prevent it from changing more law even further. And just penalize people with what we have. We don't need new laws. We just need to enforce the ones we've got. In fact, we may need to get rid of a lot of them and then enforce what's left.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of that, I think it's a good time to bring up this article, which is cop admits he's, quote, trigger happy and gets paid overtime if he shoots someone. And this is from the Free Thought Project. Which, yes, of course, I'm bringing that up because I auto-tweet it, and it makes it easier to find the news anyway. The fact that it already comes across Insanity is free, which is my Twitter username, which, if anybody isn't, you should follow me over there. But this is, a cop has been suspended after he claimed he was trigger-happy and admitted that if he shoots someone, he makes a ton of overtime. Hartford, Connecticut. And this is from Russia Today originally, by the way, in case you just get your knickers in a twist that we're fucking talking another Free Thought Project article. A Connecticut police officer has been suspended after a video emerged of him warning suspected trespassers not to do anything stupid because he is, quote, trigger happy and will be paid overtime if someone gets shot. Quote, if anyone wants to fight or run, I'm a little trigger happy, guys. I'm not going to lie. And I get paid a ton of money in overtime if I have to shoot someone. So don't do anything stupid. Hartford Police Sergeant Stephen Barones is heard telling a group of young people that he stopped for alleged trespassing on Thursday night. The 3-minute video, which surfaced on Friday, led to Barone's suspension. Barone? I don't know, Barone? Whatever. Fucking name thing. From the police force, pending an internal review of his interaction with the public. And that's on Facebook. It's got 41,000 views so far. Everybody should check out that video. It was posted by well, shit, I can't even see it. Morgan Lynn. There we go. And the article continues, quote, regardless of the context or the intent, those statements are entirely unacceptable and represent a fundamental disregard for the conduct we expect and the standards we hold ourselves to. Hartford, by the way, fuck that and fuck you, Hartford PD. You guys have been involved in many, many police abuse and brutality scandals. Don't even begin to say that just because this guy admits it, you expect higher standards, blah, blah. Fuck you. Anyway, to the side. Hartford Police Chief Assistant Chief Rafael Medina said in a statement, we look at it from the perspective of the person on the other end of the field interview. And hear those words, to hear those words isn't just scary. It projects an image of law enforcement officers who take use of force lightly. As I hope you know, we do not take any use of force lightly as a department. Yeah, we don't know that, dude. Fuck off. And also, you gotta love the language they use. They don't call it, we're stopping and harassing you. They call it a field interview. Fucking douchebags. The 10-year veteran had already been suspended for 4 days 2 years ago for his involvement in a car chase incident, which ended with him kicking the suspect while he was handcuffed. Despite the episode, Barone was later promoted to sergeant following a lengthy internal affairs investigation. Thursday night's incident began to unfold at around 9:30 p.m. local time when a group of young people was approached by the officer near an abandoned house that one of the individuals in the group was allegedly considering purchasing. Barone asked the group if any of them had any weapons, drugs, or any warrants against them. After searching them and indulging them with the pep talk, he gave all of them tickets for trespassing. The behavior in this video is completely unacceptable. Quote, it's inconsistent with the values of our police department and our city, and it is deeply damaging and disappointing, Mayor Luke Ronan said. Law enforcement officers have a responsibility to treat the use of force and threats of force seriously at all times. Well, that's the end of the article, and it's the end of bullshit from Mayor Luke Ronan. Fuck you, Luke. You deserve to have your hand chopped off. Fucking... I can't stand it when they do this. They formalize it all. Like, this is locker room talk. You gotta bet. They're always laughing about this, and he just got real comfortable saying this. It's not an isolated incident. This is the way they think. They're trained in use of force, not de-escalation, and they're fucking cunts. You gotta assume. Well, at least I gotta assume.
I can understand that assumption, right? Definitely. It's not... It's not as if it's unusual. I mean, the incentives are backwards. The system is basically designed to promote a bit of corruption at all times, and it's not beneficial to the people it's supposed to protect. It's only beneficial to those who work within it. You know?
Yeah. Well, and also the incentives are to use force, because the more force you use, the bigger toys you get, And the shinier and fancier your military equipment can look. Oh, sorry, paramilitary equipment can look.
Yeah, obviously it's not proper military because
but it is
illegal,
though.
would it? I know it is. I know it is.
Yeah. Okay. I was about to say because that's the way they trick you. They use language. They're like, we're all calm. We're doing a field interview. We're not threatening you with violence if you walk away. We're doing a field interview. Like, I would love that if I could just interview people by pointing a gun at them. Like, that would make my job as like future journalist so much easier. All I would have to do is coerce the information out of people, and I would just call it a field interview. That's the easiest thing ever.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It doesn't really make it tricky, does it, at all?
Yeah, well, and it doesn't comport with what they're saying. Fucking, we've got somebody listening right now. Says, fucking, they like my line, fuck that and fuck you, Hartford PD. Hey, Aches, glad to see you in chat. Anyway, yeah, that's what we're dealing with in Hartford. But let's jump back to your articles and discuss some international stuff.
Can you hit one more up quickly, mate? I've hit a bit of a crisis here.
Yeah, it sounds like you spilled a drink or something. I don't know. Yeah, I can do one of my next one. We're talking about Cuomo again because we don't talk about Cuomo enough. And the article is Governor Andrew Cuomo admits to committing and continuing to commit a federal crime, no charges. And this is another article from the freethoughtproject.com. Please check them out, by the way. They've supplied me with a great deal of information, and I would appreciate it if everybody gave them a look. Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, admitted to breaking a law that people are fined and arrested for every year, and nothing happened to him. This is from Matt Agarist at thefreethoughtproject.com. Albany, New York. In the land of the free, the court and legal systems, as well as law enforcement, operate on two separate planes, one for the politically connected class and one for everyone else. In case after corrupt case, cops, politicians, judges, and lawmakers are busted committing often horrific crimes, and they face no consequences. The most recent egregious example of this separate treatment under the law comes out of New York and involves the state's top official, the governor. Last week, during a political gathering in the Adirondacks, Governor Andrew Cuomo admitted to breaking a federal law, continuing to break the law, and noted how he treasured breaking the law. Not surprisingly, no investigation was launched, no fines were levied, and the governor of New York went about his life as usual. The crime Cuomo admitted to committing and continuing to commit deals with a federal law that prohibits non-Native Americans from possessing bald eagle parts, including feathers. The law is decades old and part of the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act of 1940. During the event in which he was announcing an economic development grant for the village of Saranac Lake, Cuomo took time out of the speech to reflect on the time that he and his family took an eagle feather from the lake and noted how they could continue to proudly display it at their home. Quote, one of the highlight moments was on the Saranac Lake when we were in a canoe and we were taking a canoe trip, and out of nowhere from one of the islands, an eagle came out and swooped down right next to us with his beautiful, graceful glide, Cuomo said. And when the eagle was just about at front of the canoe, one feather fell out, and we picked up that feather, and I have it on my fireplace to this day. The Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act, amended several times since its passage in 1940, prohibits anyone without a federal permit from distributing, taking, or possessing eagle parts, eggs, or nests. Violating the act can result in a fine of up to $100,000, imprisonment for 1 year, or both, for a first offense, according to the Fish and Wildlife Service's website. Under the law, only specifically authorized and permitted members of Native American tribes can possess eagle feathers, which are used in ceremonies and rituals. The AP originally caught the issue and reached out to a Cuomo spokesperson who said the family was unaware of the law. However, as statist after statist has recounted for decades, ignorance of the law is no defense against breaking it. According to the Washington Times, officials at the Fish and Wildlife Service declined to comment on Cuomo possessing an eagle feather and referred questions to the U.S. DOJ. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Albany didn't respond to a request for comment. No one here is advocating for someone to be fined $100,000 or face a year in prison for picking up an eagle feather that fell into a lake, as this is just silly. However, the double standard in this case is glaring and deserves attention. Indeed, federal agents have raided tribes who are legally allowed to possess eagle feathers and made arrests and seized feathers. But it gets worse. The federal government spends millions of dollars a year enforcing this eagle feather law. They run covert operations with names like Operation Powwow, Operation Silent Wilderness, and Operation Game Thief. Across the nation, people have faced heavy fines and even been imprisoned for similar acts the Governor Cuomo admitted to doing. However, as this case illustrates, those who are inside the system are subject to a different set of laws than the serf class. Until society refuses to tolerate this hypocrisy, we can only expect this problem to get worse. That's the end of the article. So,
it's one of those usual environmental overprotection issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's one of the things. I was on Shane Scalf's podcast recently, which is the Hapa Supremacy Show. HAPA Supremacy, spelled just like the Nazis. And I was on that show. And yes, that was a joke, Shane, in case you're listening. Fucking on that show, I discussed one of the books that I've always thought was hilarious. And it's the story of these two Englishmen who fucking went on a U.S. road trip, breaking a bunch of stupid laws. And it's called You Can Get Arrested for That. And it's fucking fantastic. I would recommend anybody who wants to read about a bunch of dumb laws read that book. Because they go on this road trip and they publicly break a lot of really stupid laws. And they actually do get arrested, I think, twice and fined once for breaking these dumb laws. And they do it on the books as a sort of peaceful protest against the dumb laws in America. And they prove that all of these laws exist and all of these laws are dumb because they do them all and nobody gets hurt. Nobody. So fucking, oh man, it's absurd, but, and this shouldn't be illegal, but the fact that a government official is bragging about breaking the law, it seems like it's really close to the other story where a cop was bragging about being able to just shoot people. So fucking fuck Cuomo. I mean, for that reason and also others, but fuck Cuomo.
Well, politicians all suck, mate. And you know how I feel about them.
Oh, yeah.
They're absolutely nightmarishly, annoyingly irritating, and they can all go swivel as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, yeah.
But can't be helped. But it's not just politicians who can be corrupt. And I think it's time to get to the Argentina thing that you mentioned. Some international news.
Yeah, for the Argentina, yeah.
Yeah, so this is from France 24. Corruption scandal in Argentina fells titans of business. Buenos Aires, records kept in notebooks of the kinds used by schoolchildren are bringing down titans of Argentina's industry in a multi-million-dollar corruption scandal. Dirty dealings are nothing new in Argentina. What set this case apart is a large number of people going down, around 20 so far, with an additional name surfacing regularly, and their high-flying status in the business world. The scandal involves under-the-table payments to the government of Néstor and Cristina Kirchner, the Peronist couple who ruled before the current president, Mauricio Macri. One big mystery is whether the money went to enrich government officials personally or was helped finance election campaigns. Sorry, I'm having to sort of translate this from slightly broken English, probably because it was done in French originally. Investigative magistrate Claudio Bonadio is raising eyebrows by aggressively ordering the arrest and questioning of so many business leaders from both ends of the political spectrum in Argentina. Most of the arrests happened on August 1st. It's not the first time that major businessmen have gone to jail. What is new is the number and the reason, said Sergio Moresi, a political scientist at San Martin National University. Prosecutor Carlos Stornielli has said bribes paid in the so-called corruption copybooks case total $160 million, which, to be honest, in U.S. terms for corruption is a literal drop in the bucket. Bonadio began jailing tycoons after the publication of the records by Oscar Centeno, who worked as a driver for the Deputy Planning and Public Works Minister Roberto Barata. In these notebooks, Centeno meticulously recorded the alleged receipt of sacks of money from 2005 to 2015. The whistleblower had been expelled from the army for bad behavior. There's no doubt that the copybooks describe in detail the way in which Kirchner's raised money illegally for 7 years without any alarm going off at any oversight agency, said Nicholas Solari of the consultancy Poliquaria. So far, 8 business leaders have confessed and struck plea bargain deals. Angelo Calcaterra, a cousin of Macri, acknowledged having ordered the payment of cash requested as a bribe in order to receive government contracts. Testifying before the judge, he said he thought this was a mandatory election campaign contribution. Leaders of the big multinational companies, such as Argentina's Techint and Isilux of Spain, have paid a visit to Benadio's office. The indictment and arrest of business leaders is new, and considering the unpopularity and impunity that big business people enjoy, it will probably be well received with public opinion, said sociologist Ricardo Rouvier. Privileged. Moresi, the political scientist, said one possible result is real progress and transparency and criminal convictions. The Buenos Aires stock market has taken a hit with the arrests. Alberto Fernandez, who served as chief of staff to the late Nestor Kirchner, has complained that only business leaders who supported Kirchner and their leftist Peronist governments have ended up behind bars, not those close to the current conservative Macri government. Funny that. A dozen or so people from the Planning and Public Works Ministry have gone before the judge, though they have not been charged over in the case, and Christina Kirchner's turn comes Monday. She now holds a seat as a senator. Ex-Planning Minister Julio De Vito and his deputy Jose Lopez have been in prison for corruption since 2017 and 2016, respectively. They managed the federal government's public works projects under the Kirchners and were the only 2 ministers to survive the various cabinet reshuffles across the couple's 12 years in power. Lope was caught red-handed hiding 160 suitcases and duffel bags containing $9 million in a convent with the help of a nun. It's like, this is like honestly, I swear to God, these people are getting their plots now straight out of Hollywood. Yeah, let's just use a nun to hide the money. What the hell, man?
Well, you know, if you look at some of the history of the way governments have propagandized, Hollywood has given them ideas. And that's sort of the thing. Like, a lot of these things, if you look at how connected the people who wrote these sorts of wild scripts are, these things happened and were normalized because of Hollywood. Like all of these spying, all these dystopian future fictions, the Orwell, the Brave New World, they were all ideas that the government had already had. And the books were just like essentially seeing if people would actually do anything about them. And people don't. People don't actually give a shit. And that's why these things are going to happen.
Well, that's the thing. I'm of the mind that there are more people who give a shit than you might think, because if there weren't, InfoWars wouldn't still be the most popular app on the App Store for news.
See,
it's that kind of principle.
And lots of people I know people personally in the like meat space that have downloaded the InfoWars app just to fuck with YouTube. There are people who care. There are people who want to be numbers. Most of those people aren't going to be listening to InfoWars. InfoWars' audience will look good, but you know that that's a statistical fallacy because numbers aren't everything. Really?
No, I'm not saying they are, but numbers, they do have a lot to back them up. I'm not saying because everybody likes it, it must be good. That's a bandwagon fallacy. That's the same argument for the state. But
right. I'm saying. Here's the thing, though, and I know what you're saying. You're saying that there are enough people out there who are paying enough attention that InfoWars is a popular app right now, right? But let me put it to you this way: my numbers on Twitter are 16,000. And I've never had over 30 concurrent viewers on my YouTube. So just
but you're actively being suppressed, though, mate. That's the other thing. Isn't
Alex also being suppressed? I mean, and the government can suppress your network traffic. So even if he owns his own server, he could be suppressed.
No, I know, and he probably does because InfoWars has been its own website for years.
Well, right. So, but my point then is that you can be suppressed and still also not have as much interest in your content as the numbers imply. I think Alex knows that too. I think he's commented on it in the past. That's just Alex Jones. There are better truthers than Alex Jones that have less viewership. So the people who are actually interested in the truth have less interest in their subjects that they're interested in, if that convoluted sentence makes sense.
I think I get your meaning. And I get your concern. We are a bit of a fringe, the ones who actually do give a damn. But I think the numbers are growing. They may not share the exact same views as what we would like them to share, but they at least share some of the important ones.
Yeah, and I hope nobody agrees with me 100%. Please, if you agree with me 100% about everything that I say, please unfollow me everywhere, unsubscribe, and go outside. You are better than me, okay? Like, I am not the best, ever. And if you think I am, please leave and improve yourself to the point where your bar is higher. Anyway, that's a separate issue.
You really need to learn how to be a capitalist, mate. I've never heard anybody actively sell themselves by, don't follow me if you really think I'm the best out there.
Yeah. I mean, really, I just I don't know, maybe it's my Christian upbringing, but I think that I don't want to be a cult of personality. That's I've been called a cult leader recently, maybe in a joking way, maybe seriously, by multiple people, not just the person that might think I'm talking about him. Arthur, it is not just you. But I've been called that recently multiple times by people who see a bunch of people who agree with me. If you agree with me 100%, I don't agree with me 100%. Whatever though. I don't want to make this about me. The problem is that people don't look at the facts; they look at the person. And so, even if they're interested in the truth, they're looking at Alex Jones because he's entertaining. They're not looking at Alex Jones because he's the most truthy person. I mean, because Aaron and Melissa Dykes, Melissa used to work for InfoWars, that's TruthStream Media, and she left InfoWars because she realized they were fake truthers. That the things that they were doing, yeah, they had truther at the shell. It was sort of like the M&M outer coating, but the core of it was a big brown pile of conspiracies that went nowhere, and just making wild statements and hoping one of them stuck. Because that's a lot of how Alex Jones predicts what he predicts, because he'll predict a whole bunch of things, and then when 10% of his predictions come true, he'll show a video where his prediction came true 100%, and he'll say, see, we're right about all of this. And, the interdimensional fucking psychic vampires that are trying to feed on your children, those people
are turning the frogs gay.
Yeah, those people are all these and it's a cargo cult. So if you believe one thing, you believe the rest of it. And I understand that this is going to lose me viewers and followers or whatever, because I'm not just sucking the AJ, but at the same time, I don't care, because I don't want those people who are just going to follow somebody blindly. I'm here for actual truth. So don't follow me either. Fucking don't buy me like I'm some sort of 100% certified gold product. I get things wrong. I was wrong today about an article that I misread the headline of. That should tell you something. Don't follow me. Follow the truth.
Yeah, the truth is hard to find. I mean, I've got a good example of that from an opinion from USA Today.
Yeah, jump into that.
Which, I'll be honest, I may need to ad-lib in the middle of this, because I've read a bit of it. It's within the first paragraph, I go, what? No. So Donald...
by the way, there's a thing on Twitter already with a cop beating the shit out of a woman, and it's somebody's quoting field interviews. So we've already been mean during this episode.
Okay, so Donald Trump broke the presidency. It's time to get rid of the job altogether. Abolish the POTUS. We've seen it, the belligerent typo-ridden tweets, the fawning press conferences with autocrats and overlords, the self-described Nazis on parade praising an American president's name. We've seen it with our own eyes. There is a bloated authoritarian lounging in his bathrobe in a 200-year-old mansion that used to symbolize the principal republic of the world. Please note the word republic. The man who openly conspired to cheat with the help of a hostile foreign nation in a federal election. It is alleged. On election night, he came in second place, yet due to the scab of slavery in the Constitution, the Electoral College, which, by the way, is the reason why it's still a republic, this usurper has the full power of the most powerful military in history and the command of the treasury and the absolute power to pardon. And he can unilaterally annihilate millions of people with the command to deploy nuclear weapons. So, your thoughts? Sorry, one sec, I had the door.
That's totally fine. I just,
Anyway.
I wanted to make sure that you didn't get killed for what we're saying on this broadcast, At least beating upside the head with a British Bobby Club.
He made refugees begging us for mercy into orphans, hoping it will deter other asylum seekers because he can. Now poised to put a man on the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, who believes in supreme leaders if they're Republicans, that is. I mean, this is the kind of sort of overrated tripe that, unfortunately, because within the first paragraph, he highlights the fact it's a republic, then complains about the fact that the components of Republican elections, the Electoral College, are somehow stealing the vote from the people, when they were designed to prevent urban power centers like LA and New York from controlling the election for all 50 states. That was sort of their purpose. And I'll be honest, the remainder of this is more of the same. Basically, how impeachment won't remove Trump because it failed to remove Andrew Johnson. It failed to get rid of Clinton, apparently, even though he never actually did get impeached, if I remember correctly. He was acquitted for various reasons. I can't remember why exactly. I think the whole thing just sort of lost steam. And Nixon stepped down because he knew he was going to go away. So to say it doesn't work is a bit pushing it. To say that it's hard to do would be very accurate. Basically, the case at the moment that this guy's trying to make is that the three branches of government are not equal. Congress is more dependent on the president than he is on Congress. The president has elements of power. The Congress has but words. He can act. Congress can but talk. And this man is now advocating the abolishing of the presidency to save democracy, apparently. I'm not really certain it needs saving. In 1973, the idea came up again a few weeks after the second inauguration of Richard Nixon, when Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Barbara Tuchman wrote a piece in the New York Times asking, should we abolish the presidency? Tuchman argued that Congress is at fault for the executive branch becoming too powerful. Responsibility must be placed where it belongs, in the voter. The failure of Congress is a failure of the people. 18 months later, Nixon resigned. His successor gave Nixon a blanket pardon, ratifying that he was in fact above the law. Tuchman also touted that the Swiss Republic use of a council in lieu of a hero-like dad figure. But I'm mostly inspired by Comedy Central's President's Show, starring comedian Anthony Adamunek. I can't pronounce that name. With his searing Trump impersonation, Adam Manuik is introduced as the 45th and final president. We can make that happen. So yeah, this apparently now, in order to fight Trump, the entire presidency must be abolished. So maybe the left can be taught.
Well, I mean, maybe, but keep in mind the left also wants a democratized version of the U.S., which would basically mean that the numbers would be inherently manipulable. And, if the left had their way, according to the numbers that exist now, Hillary would be POTUS. The only reason they're trying to flip the board right now and upend the table is because their popular vote in a republic didn't get them in.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to win. They're not going to succeed. And the real truth is political solutions. Here, let me get really close to the mic and get my sensual voice going. Hey, baby. Hey, Democrats. I know you're listening to this show, but political solutions don't work, man. You gotta ditch that dude. Your man's is cheating on you. All right? Political solutions ain't gonna fix the problems. They ain't gonna make the system any better. They're just gonna make you feel better about the system. You gotta leave. He's just treating you nice because he wants you. Anyway, that's it.
Well, oh man. So yeah, it's gotten strange to say the least. Oh God, I don't even know where to begin with that, though. I mean, for people to have gotten to the point where they're so disillusioned now that they are actually questioning whether or not they need a specific branch of government, that really warms my heart in a very perverse sort of way.
I mean, maybe some of them, but the other ones want like Casio fucking socialist chick in there. So.
Oh yeah, I know.
I mean,
and meanwhile, we all get to laugh at her completely failing to understand all principles of economic thought.
Well, but if they truly want no federal government, I hate to just plug somebody like that, but Adam Kokesh is running to abolish the federal government. If you leftists actually want no federal government, maybe vote for him, but I don't think so, and I wouldn't encourage that, because guess what? Politics doesn't work. Ditch your mans, he's cheating on you.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't pick up one of his best friends either, because they're all about the same.
Yeah. And like beyond all that shit, like everybody's like basically when they lose, they're always looking for somebody on the rebound. This relationship is abusive. Leave.
I know. And preaching to the choir on that one, 100%. I can't even devil's advocate for it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so let's just really, I mean, there are just so many stories, and some of these are brand new. Let's just stick with this one then, because this one's a nice little editorial from Clint Siegner on Activist Post called, and the title is "The Federal Reserve Secretly Sticking It to Americans for Over 100 Years." In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, the private Federal Reserve bank cartel was front and center as a target for public outrage. Former U.S. Congressman Ron Paul's "End the Fed" message suddenly resonated. Americans hated Fed officials bailing out the banksters, ritually rewarding them for crooked and irresponsible behavior, which helped create the crisis. But years have passed. Americans have been enjoying the expansion stage of the next great bubble. The central planners at the Fed and their colleagues at the nation's largest banks have been busy stimulating the real estate, equity, and bond markets. The movement to audit or end the Fed faded back into obscurity. That is why an article published last week in the WSJ came as a bit of a surprise. The headline is, "We'll Never Know How Bad the Federal Reserve Is," and it serves as a reminder for those who may have forgotten the Fed is not your friend. The article outlines the central bank's policy for keeping secrets. As the primary regulator for U.S. banks, the Fed is responsible for examining banks and writing reports on what it finds. However, those reports are not for public consumption. They're exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. Instead, they are kept in a file for 30 years, then destroyed. Examiners might be investigating the errors and sins committed by a bank, but the public never gets to make their own evaluation. We cannot gauge either how thorough the investigation was or whether any penalties are commensurate with the crimes. The reason for such secrecy is obvious. The Federal Reserve was designed and built to make sure neither its officials nor private bankers are held publicly accountable. Time and again, America's latest central bank has provided bailouts for Wall Street, with Main Street footing the bill. Not a single high-level bank executive has been prosecuted for the rampant and pervasive fraud associated with the 2008 crisis. The big banks have prospered growing larger and even more, quote, systemically important, a term which means too big to fail. As a regular, the Fed is remarkable for its staggering ineptitude or for its total corruption. You decide which. Meanwhile, politicians in D.C. have been able to accelerate the growth of government spending facilitated by the central bank in myriad ways. Of course, the central bankers will tell us that secrecy is important for, quote, maintaining independence and security of the markets. These claims that there is a legitimate need for secrecy would be slightly more credible if it were for a limited time. That is not the case, however. The Fed is in many regards a virtual black box which shall remain closed for all time, at least if officials continue to have their way. And there's more. But basically, yeah, I mean, the Fed needs to be a constant reminder because there's always corruption coming out of it. And, you know, part of that corruption is the war machine it funds, which I'll be reading about in a short bit here.
There was one I just picked up on because the news over here is doing a big blurb on how police are protecting a bunch of protesters in D.C. Who are part of the far right. It's that Unite the Right version 2.0 hitting DC. Apparently, they protested today.
Yeah.
And
while you read that, I'll load up the other two that I have going.
Fair enough. So Antifa clashes with police and journalists in Charlottesville and DC. Antifa says it fights fascists and neo-Nazis, but this weekend members attacked cops and journalists. So there's a picture of some Antifa protesters and Black Bloc members as well on the front page of Vox for this. Anyway, Sunday's counter-protests against the white nationalist, quote, Unite the Right to rally in Washington, D.C. were largely peaceful. Thousands of people held multiple rallies across the city to celebrate diversity and push back against the hateful views the white nationalists espouse. But a few left-wing, quote, Antifa, short for anti-fascist, counter-protesters did engage in violence, throwing eggs and water bottles and shooting fireworks at police officers and some journalists who were covering the demonstrations. And it's got Tim Mark saying mass Antifa launch fireworks, water bottles, eggs at cops. Secret Services backed off. It's got a video attached to it as well. Dodged an egg thrown at my head from inside the Antifa crowd as NPR's Brian Mann narrated. Demonstrators also clashed with journalists in Charlottesville, Virginia on Saturday during an event marking the one-year anniversary of the killing of Heather Heyer by a Unite the Right participant at the first rally. NBC News' Carl Perry posted a video of protesters shoving their hands into his camera, trying to cover the lens and ask him to stop filming. Protesters very aggressive with the media in Charlottesville, said Carl Perry. A bit later, Perry posted another video of a protester shouting, "Fuck you, snitch-ass news, bitch, fuck you," and aggressively swatting away Perry's camera. Hashtag Charlottesville. This is not the first time Antifa protesters have been violent. In August 2017, about 100 anarchists, quote unquote, and we'll get to that in a minute because they ain't, and Antifa members assaulted far-right demonstrators who were marching peacefully in Berkeley, California, with pepper spray, water bottles, and a direct physical assault. As Vox's German Lopez wrote at the time, the argument for Antifa activists is that the current crop of right-wing protesters, which are partly, but not entirely, made up of neo-Nazis, KKK members, and other white supremacists and nationalists, are so extreme that they must be stopped swiftly and even violently. Lopez continued, Antifa supporters worry that if these groups' views aren't completely robbed of any kind of platform, they could gain legitimacy and take advantage of democratic ideals like free speech to, ironically, promote their undemocratic messages. Violence is one way to get them off the stage. What this view misses is the backlash that may come from political violence, that such violence can reinforce right-wing views about the left. As Michael Kazin, a history professor at Georgetown University and editor of Dissent magazine, told me this year, non-leftists often see the left as disruptive, lawless force. Violence tends to confirm that view. This week at Charlottesville and D.C., though, it wasn't the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists the Antifa attacked. It was the police who were there to help keep the peace among all the demonstrators and the journalists who were there to cover the events. How anyone can factor that into Antifa's ideology is anyone's guess, and that's the end of the article. I can make a very, very good cogent guess to that. They don't want people highlighting that they use the tactics that they decry the people that they target for using. And they basically don't like people pointing out the hypocrisy for everybody else to see. And
Well, right.
it's as
And of
simple
course,
as
if
that.
you start to, and of course, if you start to seem like your enemy, it's only because the press has shown a light on what you're doing. So, I mean, it's always interesting to see that. Like I had a phrase, "Watch the light where the roaches scatter." I think that's a relatively good thing here.
Mm. Yeah, and the thing is that the light has to be so widespread and basically shown from every corner of the room now in order to make sure you can keep the roaches down. And you've got to keep it on 24/7 now, practically, to keep them out of the woodwork. But you won't get them all, and unless you can basically break every single institution that exists that they can abuse, which is pretty much all of them.
Well, right, and of course, like a lot of these sorts of rallies are highlight points, and everybody likes to shine a spotlight on these and use spotlight fallacy and claim that this is how it normally is. And then everybody has to polarize on one or the other ends of this manufactured divide, and the elites get to profit off the whole thing. Like it's ordo ab chaos, it's divide and conquer, and it's the specific strategies that the elites have been using since they decided to operate and adopt Bernaysian propaganda tactics. And so
mate, they've been using it for oh god, I can't even. I'm trying to remember the first. Oh no, they've probably been using it for a good century at least now.
Yeah,
this,
but they've
divide and conquer in different ways.
But they've only been able to spotlight it this way since mass media was adopted, and that was like closer to the 60s and 70s, like past the fireside chats for sure.
True.
So
I mean, it really started with radio, but I know what you mean.
Well, because radio still wasn't mass media because you would have to gather around it. Mass media is the media that, like, fucking bombards you constantly. That you see that big ass screen in Times Square. That you see that phone in your hand, and then a moving ad on a bus. You know, it's the thing that bombards you constantly everywhere. Billboards, fucking giant advertisements that obscure and clutter up a city. You know, is that sort of thing. That sort of mass media sort of, we're going to target and tag you. And like, you know, here's a really interesting thing. If anyone's on Twitter, I'm doing this right now. Go to your settings and check out your data. Because like, I'm finding out really interesting things that Twitter thinks I am. And like, I'm typing right now in this group chat I'm a member of. So I'm I'm anywhere from 13 to 65. I'm interested in conservatives listed 3 times. I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter. And a host of other dumb things. And that's not even getting into the languages it says I supposedly speak, which are English, which is my primary language, and they suspect I also speak Polish, Finnish, Slovenian, Haitian Creole, Catalan, Vietnamese, Basque, Norwegian, Portuguese, Italian, Dutch, French, German, Czech, Indonesian, Romanian, Turkish, Spanish, Estonian, and Tagalog. So
what the fuck is Tagalog?
Oh, you don't know about that one? Okay.
I can't believe what is Tagalog?
It's a member of people originally of Central Luzon in the Philippine Islands.
Okay.
So it thinks I'm a Filipino, Spanish, Estonian, blah, blah, Bernie Sanders supporter who's heavily conservative and into Japan.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world of dumb algorithms. They don't necessarily cross-reference location or anything to do with your information. They aren't smart, no matter what you might think. It takes very smart people to make them smart.
And it thinks I spent a few years in Boise, Idaho, and Wichita, Kansas, respectively, which I've never like been to either of those places, but it must be a VPN issue, I'm thinking.
Probably, it's probably saying because of your VPN, you're bouncing all over the place, and it probably says that as well because of it's probably saying all those languages because it identifies your location every now and again as being somewhere halfway around the world, and therefore you must speak the local language because you live there.
Yeah, well, I mean, and so what I'm saying is that now they've got so many ways to target you. And I'm a little bit harder to target because I'm fucking all over the place. I'm practically schizophrenic, but you know, somebody else might be much easier to target. And if it didn't work for a decent chunk of people, they wouldn't do it. And now they're very good at making devices, manufacturing them, and prospering off of them.
I would caveat that slightly, mate. You only need to do it better than random, basically. And you need to do it better than your nearest competitors in some way, shape, or form. You need to either have a better way of tracking, like finding your audience, finding out how they respond to your brand. It's dependent on what the platform provides. Online advertising is actually incredibly complicated and very interesting, and I could spend quite a long time talking about it, but I bore everyone to death.
Actually, that might be something interesting on a more personal level for a State Smash podcast. So let me know what days work for you. But
well, let me know when you need me for it, mate, and what times. You know the drill.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that's a relatively good place to wrap it today, to be honest. Because I have more articles, but I should bring those up tomorrow when we aren't already writing a high fucking bashing corporations.
Fair enough. Well, let's hit any comments.
Yeah, and so we've got Kitty Cats in chat. So hey, Kitty. Danielle says the idea that if it's inconvenient to your ideology, just wreck it to suit yourself. It doesn't look like it to me. I think those might have been disconnected comments, but yeah, I mean, I definitely, and I call it table flipping as a result of my like fucking. I need to adopt something other than the pigeon shit chess analogy because I think that's dumb. And I think, you know, to be honest, since I want the entire system subverted, that could apply to me as well. So I just do table flipping because they don't want to play the game if their opponent is winning. That's all they want to not play the game of. But I don't want either side. I'm neither black nor white in this chess game. I'm an observer, and I'm constantly being attacked by the people playing, even though I'm not disturbing the game very much. So I don't really like the analogies, but whatever. The point is that they are flipping the table because they lost in many ways. And in doing so, and they did the same thing when Bush won, not by popular vote, because the left is really bad at admitting the system works the way that they don't want it to, instead of that the system is beautiful and can promote liberalism and blah. You want liberalism? Be an anarchist. That's it. Point blank, full stop. That's fucking it. I guess that's what I have to say. Like, do you have anything, Dad?
Well, not hugely. I mean, I'll be honest. You did a pretty good job of covering that. I mean, there's two games. The only thing I'd say is there are two games in play at all times. One's the game of politics, and one's the game of everything else. And you don't have to play.
Or maybe La Vie is politic. You know, maybe it's a simple situation of that. Maybe there's still politics going on in the background. We just don't get to know about them.
Possibly.
But what were you saying? Sort of interrupted you there.
No, it's all right. I mean, I was basically saying the two types of game that you can play. You can play the game of politics, and you can use that to play the other game, or you can just play the other game. And I find that one more fun.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to play the game of destroying everybody else's tables. That's my point. and I should be able to move to Portland soon, where there are theoretically a bunch of anarchists. So once I do, there's going to be a lot of changes, and those changes are going to hit the news pretty hard. Kitty Cat says hers are Turkish, Norwegian, Spanish, Basque, Catalan, Hungarian, Estonian, Lithuanian, Polish, Italian, German, Thai, Haitian, Creole, Portuguese, and by the way, that's not two separate. That's Haitian Creole, Portuguese, Romanian, Tagalog, Vietnamese, French, and Indonesian. So, and Danielle says Uncle Meredith studied Tagalog. So I guess your
Fair
uncle
enough.
studied Tagalog. Hello all from Chris. Hey Chris. And Kitty says mine is hilarious. So yes, yeah, and by the way, that's just the thing. Like interest from partners. Fucking for some reason, it thinks I own a cat and buy Purina. It thinks I buy Johnsonville meat, which I pretty much don't. It thinks I like Gain laundry detergent, like Sara Lee. It thinks I drink Gatorade when Powerade Master Race. Fucking there are so many, and it thinks that I own a home that's 100,000 plus in value, and that my household income is 30,000 plus. Thank you for giving me a better life than I have in real world. Fucking Twitter. Rub it in my face, why don't you? And it also says that my family member ranges are anywhere from 20 to 60. So
You should
I
check
mean,
out what Google thinks about you, because you can do the same there. They give you a very full
They're actually
detail.
closer.
Oh yeah, Google's better at it, but again, they'll still get it wrong, especially if you have shared devices.
Oh, by the way,
So-
one thing I will say, even though this isn't sponsored by them, one thing they did get right, two things actually: Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce and Honey Bunches of Oats. I eat both of those, but those are pretty much it. That and yeah, it looks like that's pretty much it. And they think I like Lay's. Fuck you, Twitter. Lay's suck ass.
But yeah, this is my point. Algorithms can be very smart, or they can be incredibly stupid, and it just depends on the data they get on you and
Yeah.
how well they can process it. And if they can't
But
process it well, Twitter, they apparently say you're a multilingual individual who lives in 5 different places at once and has a house when you're still renting.
Yeah, well, and so that and I'll be moving to Portland soon, so it'll be interesting to see if how quickly their data catches up to that. Because right now it thinks I live in LA, which I wish. But whatever. Side issue entirely. By the way, oh, and actually, yeah, that's the third one. Sprite. Sprite is good. I will say that. I can barely ever find a time when I wouldn't want a Sprite. So anyway, not sponsored by any of those, though. We already listed our sponsors. Anyway, fuck Lay's, fuck the system, smash the state. I think that's a relatively good way to end the show here.
Fair enough. Have a bad morning, everybody.